Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. A lot going on, and we're going to focus on some of the stuff in Antarctica, but I'd like to preface that with there's no way to actually verify some of this, so we just have to kind of connect the dots, and we don't know for sure what's true and what isn't. So with that in mind, I would like to start out with a little kind of a commentary, and I want Larry, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, doing okay, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I want you to comment on this commentary I got. It's very short. Democratic behavior at the Trump speech proves their total disregard for the Constitution, the American people, or those that need help. These Democrats are insane deplorables who have nothing but despicable behavior. And if you're a Democrat, you might want to rethink your affiliation to them. There is absolutely no excuse for such behavior. It only further proves these are Marxist communists bent upon the overthrow of the United States. Watch for a communist Obama, Soros, Clinton, American Spring as soon as the weather warms up. And they will succeed if Trump does not arrest a bunch of these for sedition and treason. So, what do you think? It made me sick to watch these people.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It just reminded me so much of the warning Dimitri Duduman gave to America just before he passed away on his trip over here. And, he said they were communists. And I talked to Augusto Perez a day or so ago, and he was also chiming in on the very same thing you just read and called it what was happening was a communist coup, and said he had seen this before, and he also gave a warning that if within he says, I'm not even sure we can get to 3 months. He said within 3 months or less, if Trump hasn't really rounded these folks up and brought the basic constitutional law against them, they will overcome his administration, and they will overcome probably the window that we've got.
Yeah, I think folks ought to realize there's a big difference between disagreeing with someone and to actively undermine and attempt to overthrow existing authority, which is what they're trying to do.
Well,
and they're
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to mention right there, Stuart, this is the very roadmap that Obama and team used. Remember when he worked with the Muslim Brotherhood to bring the coup against Mubarak in Egypt? This is the playbook they used, the very same playbook.
Yes, and they were successful, which leads me to believe they'll probably be successful again, because I don't think the American people have figured out what's really going on, and of course major media keeps calling them progressives rather than what they are, which is communists, Marxists, socialists who are bent upon the overthrow of the United States Constitution and bring in their new world order. So anyway, I just had to make a comment about it because I just thought their reaction to in Congress was just a display of, they talk about us being deplorables. I think that they should look in the mirror before they use those kind of terms. But anyway, I understand, too, now that Obama is ready to rock and roll, according to his, what was he, head of the Justice Department there. Can't think of his name right now.
Eric Holder, the DOJ.
Yes. He claims Obama is ready to rock and roll now. So that's why I mentioned I think you're going to see some very bad stuff in the United States. Anyway, Antarctica. This is getting very, very bizarre. What's your latest on it?
Well, for those that have read Steve Quayle's post, and I'm not telling people to believe the data. Don't believe, I'm not telling people to believe the whistleblowers or the insiders that are sending this information out. But I find it interesting, Stuart, and I'd like your opinion on this. They're reporting that it's about 2 miles down from the surface in this whatever dig that the excavation that they have done in Antarctica, and where some of this is coming out. And I find that rather telling, because if you'll remember, the Golden Mirror, which you've already mentioned, was found in a coal mine about 2 miles down or so in Russia. And remember the Evener coal mine where they dug down, they found the walls, polished walls, they found structures and buildings, and there was a massive cover-up, and that was 2 miles down. And so what is 2 miles down on this planet that we are unaware of?
Good question. But obviously something got covered up with some sort of a crustal displacement or something. I mean, I've been reading all kinds of data. For example, one guy claims that Antarctica is really Atlantis. I can't quite buy into that, because even if you had a polar shift, which obviously we did, Atlantis Antarctica would not be in a proper position from where Plato and the rest of them put it, and probably should have known approximately where it was. But I do want to get into this deal with Quayle. He says, latest on Antarctica evacuations that I can share appears the U.S. military is evacuating civilian contractors from their area of operations. This is from my scientist listener, whoever is writing this, who returned a month ago from Antarctica. Why would they be evacuating civilian contractors unless there's some dangerous thing going on down there? Got any comments on that?
Well, that's rather interesting, because one of the posts earlier mentioned a lab of some kind, and we do know that a number of nations have had experiments going on in Antarctica at those stations that they structured there. And you remember I still fall back on remembering the massive flying saucer that was buried under the ice, remember? And that had fallen, an ancient flying saucer, actually, and it had that one individual still alive in it. He wasn't human.
Yes.
He was humanoid-like, but wasn't human. And I wondered where they ever got that. But we've had a lot of very important people, it seems, going down to Antarctica the last couple of years, notable people. And we don't know why. We don't know the reasons. There's always been rumors of excavations going on. And one of the things you wonder, what purpose would it serve to have archaeologists in Antarctica, and why even build highways in Antarctica, which we know they did? There's a lot of stuff, I'll put it that way. Stuff has been going on for some time in Antarctica that we didn't know about. Now, I know that when I talked to Red Elk, he mentioned the long walkers, so to speak, breaking out sooner or later in 3 locations in America. But he never shared with me about other locations in the world that might occur. And from this post, if true, we don't know that it is, but if true, they do mention giants in this post, and also they're trying to get out.
Well, it's kind of interesting. There was a fellow who's evidently his dad or something worked in Antarctica, and he was in the process of a deathbed, I guess, confession, and told about these large creatures that were down there and occasionally would be seen. So, and that's not the only one. There have been others. But anyway, getting back to Quayle, he says, latest on Antarctica evacuations that I can share. It appears that the U.S. military is evacuating civilian contractors from their area of operations. And he says, no confirmation from those left behind in Antarctica. But the place is huge, and as I said, only the Americans can move those kinds of numbers around them and South American bases manned by military personnel, the rest of the world must abide by the no military part of the Antarctic Treaty. Now, we do know that there are military involved because we've had a number of people who have come back from there and said it is under military rule, basically, at least the American sector is. So here's what Quayle then says. In the last week, I have been in contact with various people. Here's what I have been told. The military is moving vast amounts of hardware down to very deep elevators in their control, 2+ miles down in their sector. According to Green Beret and General's report, certain giant entities as large as 18 to 20 feet tall, numbering 4 dozen, have broken out and are headed into the vast tunnel systems beneath the Antarctic continent. 2 special op companies and sonic and laser weapons have been dispatched to seek and to destroy. Sounds like a replay, or what's happened in the Dulce Underground alien base war over a decade ago. I cannot verify anyone else's report, but something involved giants on the loose and a 35-year-old Nazis is in play. And by the way, those are the general's words. Relate to my friend, and his integrity is above reproach. Take it to the Lord, basically, in prayer is what he's saying. He's talking about 48 giants that are 18 to 20 feet tall that are wandering around the caves underground. And we know for a fact there are underground tunnels everywhere now.
Yeah,
What's
that's
your
very
take?
true. Matter of fact, we know that because of a number of people that have went underground, that these tunnels run around the world, actually, all under South America, up through to North America, up into Canada, underground. And we're aware of that. They don't let it out, but we're aware of it. But what's also interesting, Stuart, and you might give me your opinion on this, Drudge Report headlines and Yahoo News put out this morning, Antarctica hits record high temperature at a balmy 63.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Says Argentina research base Palmer Station on the north tip of Antarctica Peninsula reading 63 plus degrees Fahrenheit. So we do know that that's going on, and also some of the massive ice sheets are beginning to break away.
Well, this is very, very interesting in relation to the bots, because I just got the newest bot. I don't have it in front of me, but basically what they said was that the weather in Antarctica was going to get extremely bizarre, from very hot to then very cold, and that the melting along the coastal regions, according to what they're reading in their, I don't know how they do it, whatever, or whether he's getting inside information, I guess it doesn't matter. He's been very, very accurate, I guess one could say, of late. But he claims that the ice melt is going to reveal all kinds of ancient artifacts and probably things it's part of that new discovery that he talks about, which is, in some ways, I guess, high technology, which would bring us back to the golden mirror that was found. And it also mentions that this new discovery of some of the technology is so complex that it's frustrating to the scientists trying to unravel how it all works or what it even is, which would be, of course, implying anyway, extraterrestrial or alien concepts. And, of course, also going along with this, mankind is much more ancient than being told, which I don't buy at all. There is no question in the Bible that talks about entities or whatever that lived before Homo sapien. So if they can merge these two concepts together, then they're putting concrete on their fake evolution conspiracy stuff, And this will all be part of that strong delusion that the Lord said he was going to lay down upon the planet for disregarding the simplicity of the cross of Christ. This is getting very, very interesting.
Oh, you're right, Stuart. And one of the interesting things, too, you talk about the high technology that operates on things that we really don't operate basically on. If you'll remember the Golden Mirror now, and that report was through Jonathan Gray, the researcher, who had a whistleblower, and they said that the Golden Mirror, though found in Russia, was sent to scientists in the U.S., black projects, and that actually they didn't even know it was so advanced, they did not know how to use it until frequencies in another building began to make it operate. And then they found, my Lord, there was not only scrolls and words and names and photographs and vehicles and et cetera, but, it's almost like that was some of that may have been, I wonder if Antarctica especially, was part of the pre-flood, world.
Yes,
and of course we know when you talk about pre-flood world, we're talking about fallen angels, we're talking about giants, the Nephilim, and also we're talking about hybrids of all kinds.
Yeah, I've often thought that, Greek so-called mythology wasn't really mythology at all. And now they've dug up giant skeletons that have only one cavity for an eye. I saw a picture of one not very long ago. And I know that Klaus Dona has dug up a number of these things. And somebody sent me some Bible codes. I don't know if they're accurate. I can't say they are. But here's something that's kind of interesting that's showing up in them about Antarctica. And remember the comment that Quayle made about 135-year-old Nazis? Well, the name Mengele shows up on several of these when dealing with Antarctica. Now, he was a German scientist, and didn't he fool around with genetics and DNA and medical experiments that were horrific on people?
I think that's exactly right, and I believe his name was Mengele or something like that.
Mengele, probably not pronouncing it right. It's Mengele. Well, I think that's
Mengele.
Yeah. And he was Dr. Death, I think is what they nicknamed him. And he was so maybe he went to Antarctica. They claim that a whole bunch of submarines went missing after the war. So they were maybe deep underground. I mean, why would this guy tell his friend about 135-year-old Nazis? And as I pointed out on our last show, we can prove they were down there.
Well, what's interesting, too, is Stan Deyo has said that this situation in Antarctica is real, that it's real. And he talks about an underground civilization even, and he said it's real. Now, he doesn't talk about it much, but he says what has occurred is there,
Well, here's something else that's very, very interesting about these codes I was sent. And this is very fascinating to me because Oliver Stone's son did a lot of research on Obama. Now, we're getting into bizarro land here, but that's kind of paranormal. He did some work on Obama and going all the way back to Egypt and Akhenaten, and claimed that Obama appears to be a clone. Well, here's something that shows up in these codes. DNA, Obama, DNA again, Akhenaten, copy, duplicate, birth. What do you think about that?
Well, I have seen a bust or something, or an image of that Egyptian king, And the resemblance between Obama and that ancient king is remarkable.
Well, it's almost a dead ringer. And then one of these other, this Mengele, or however you want to pronounce it, this German scientist shows up all the time in these codes about Antarctica, South Pole, incubations, basically. Hitler shows up, the serpent, DNA, cloning, seed, Nimrod, and some project that keeps showing up called Project Initiative, whatever that is. So, that's very fascinating compared with what Quayle's friend was told. I'm just kind of connect the dots. Then Orion also shows up, and CERN as well, and the code claims there is a CERN operation out of Antarctica. So anyway, I thought that was. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that is really the telling. We can't verify how that code was run or anything about it, but Mengele, I think is how you says his
Mengele,
name.
Yeah, probably.
I'm not good on pronunciation of those names either, but what is kind of striking too is the fact that you and I have been asking some individuals to do some codes on Antarctica, and there's a little bit of resistance in that, and so it's odd. It's odd. There does seem to be more data though beginning to leak out on that, if true, I got to say.
Yeah, we don't know if it's true, but here's another one. You are unloosing an abyss, which is kind of, and then it says the strange one is D-wave. And then another one, liquid quartz. Have you ever heard of liquid quartz, or has anybody out there heard of it? Email me at enigma@trueinsight, TRU, drop the E, insight.com. I'd love any comments we can get on this. This is getting fascinating. Maybe none of it's true. Maybe all just misinformation. But it just seems kind of odd. It talks about they shall return. CERN shows up a number of times. And Orion. Now, you mentioned Orion. When was that? Our last show about some spaceship.
Oh yeah, a spaceship called the Orion. That I saw a picture image of it, and it reminded me of the Messiah on the movie Deep Impact. It looks a lot like it, and they're about to take a trip around the moon and a test trip. And there's somehow, even though that's named Orion, there also seems to be some connections and reports of knowledge about a portal of some kind towards the Orion star system, and somehow tied also to CERN and Black Project. So, there's a lot going on, Stuart. There's a lot going on.
So maybe we are opening up the abyss. It seems odd that would show up in these codes as well. But what was fascinating to me was that the work that Oliver Stone's Boyd did on Obama and cloning, and we know Dr. Peter Beater claimed they were cloning 30 years ago. Now, whether he's telling the truth or not, everything else he said actually came true. So one would assume that he probably had inside information even way back then. He's dead now. But I think cloning's been around for some time myself. I think this is the tampering that talks about in Genesis. We call it
and I really
Greek
find
mythology.
I really find it interesting, Stuart, that you posted today on your blog site. You said, Isaiah praying that let not the giants live again. Now, why would he pray that prayer if there wasn't a possibility of that occurring?
Yeah, and if they're gonna live again, that means or be on the earth, and you do have that comment coming upon the earth, which would indicate either coming up from below. And I don't know if you've seen these pictures, or I don't know what they are, artwork where sculptures of these huge giants coming up from underground. You see them in Europe. There's more and more of them showing up. So
yeah, I think there's one classic one that Tom Horn's been posting lately with giants crawling out of the ground, and I believe that may be from a artwork in Denver, Colorado. You know, under that airport.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what. I think we're in for some very, very bizarre times. Anything else before we close down? I only did half an hour, and Friday we should maybe do some more on this and other news. What else have you got for news? Anything coming out of Israel other than they're on alert?
Well, an interesting news post on Skywatch TV today is new data about 2 distant asteroids suggests connection with mysterious Planet 9, you know, that they talked about for a while. And says a new study by the Institute of Astrophysical Canarius talking about the 2 asteroids and their connection with, like Sitchin's work, some of the images that he had of the Anunnaki.
It's all beginning. I wonder if these things are not Anunnaki, but the fallen ones, Nephilim, that got out. Maybe they've been cloning them. We know they've dug up the bones.
You remember Tom Horn wrote a book, a classic years ago called The Ahriman Gate, and that's exactly what that was about, deep black projects underground where they cloned these giants back to life like hybrids, and they literally begin to escape.
Well, maybe that's exactly why what Steve Quayle was talking about when he used the word lab, because that would indicate cloning. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And you mentioned the Middle East. We need to watch it very, very closely. It appears in some of the information leaking out that there appears to be a possible concern of an attack that's really controlled by Iran, but launched from Syria using Hezbollah and Hamas from the Sinai and other fighters against Israel. So they're preparing for that. They're concerned about that, and there's information I can't talk about in that, but we need to watch closely. And there appears to be, all other news is drowning out the military movements in the Middle East that began with the inauguration of Trump.
Yeah, which he maybe probably more than likely gave the order to do, because he's not going to fool around. He's not like Obama. It's kind of like every time Iran gives a finger to Trump, it's like waving a red flag in front of a bull. But so I think you're right. And if Israel gets into a fight, we're going to be right there with them. So this could go down, folks, any time. And as far as an economic collapse that we've been talking about, that could also happen at any time. So you can't eat silver and you can't eat gold, and it's hard to eat paper money. It doesn't taste too well, so maybe convert some of it into food, put it away, so you can survive. Remember that, who was it? David Wilkinson said there was going to be a bank holiday for 6 months. So that means people better be ready. Anything else? We got about 45 seconds.
No, the easiest way to follow my blog is at larrywtaylor.org. That's larrywtaylor.org. Thank you, Stuart.
Oh, no problem. Folks, email us at enigma@true, T-R-U, drop the E, insight.com for any comments and stuff, and we'll try to get to them and do a show on some of that. And we really appreciate all the people who listen and support us. Support is not necessarily a good thing in times of bad economic times. Looks like it's swinging around a little bit. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on Friday.